Hare Krishna. Smita Amrita, she's very attached to Kirtan, I'll say. But she'll go for 5 more mantras because she loves Kirtan so much. It's very nice. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text 23. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vapishu vidramatash amalam ritapsu. Preshan vita nijavane tulasi birisham. Abhyarchati swalakamunna samiksha vaktram. Ucheshitam bhagavatetamatangayatsri. Vapishu vidrumatata shamalam ritapshu. Preshan vitani javane tulasi birisham. Abhyarchati swalakamunnasam iksha vaktram. Ucheshitam bhagavatet amatangayatstri. One more time. Vapishu vidrumatata shamalam ritapshu. Preshan vita nijavane tulasi birisham. Abhyarchati swalakam unnasam iksha vaktram. Ucheshitam bhagavatet amatangayatstri. Vaishnavas. Apishu vidrumatata samalam ratapsu. Preshan vitani javane tulasi birisham. Abhyarchati swalakam unnasam iksha vaktram. Shitam bhagavate tamatangayatstri. Vapishu vidrumatata shamalam ritapshu. Peshan vitani javane tulasi birisham. Abhyarchati swalakamunna samiksha vaktram. Cheshitam bhagavata tamatangayatstri. Vapishu vidrumatata shamalam ritapsu. Preshan vitani javane tulasi birisham. Abhyachati swalakamunna samiksha vaktram. Cheshitam bhagavate tamatangayatstri. Vaishnavis? Sahar one. It's okay. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Vapishu vidrumatata shamalam ritapshu. Preshan vitani javane tulasi birisham. Abhyachati swalakamunnasa ikshavaktram Ucheshitam bhagavate tamatangayachchi Vapishu in the ponds Vidruma made of coral Tatasu banks Amala transparent Amrita nectarian Apsu water Presha Anvita surrounded by maidservants Nijavane in her own garden Tulasi bee with Tulasi Isham the Supreme Lord Abhyarchati worship Sualakam with her face decorated with tilak Unnasam raised nose Iksha by seeing Vaktram face Ucheshitam being kissed Bhagavata by the Supreme Lord Iti thus Amata thought Anga O demigods Yatshrihi whose beauty translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The goddesses of fortune worship the Lord in their own gardens by offering tulasi leaves on the coral-paved banks of transcendental reservoirs of water. While offering worship to the Lord, they can see on the water the reflection of their beautiful faces with raised noses, and it appears that they have become more beautiful because of the Lord's kissing their faces. Purport. Generally, when a woman is kissed by her husband, her face becomes more beautiful. In Vaikuntha also, although the goddess of fortune is naturally as beautiful as can be imagined, she nevertheless awaits the kissing of the Lord to make her face more beautiful. The beautiful face of the goddess of fortune appears in the ponds of transcendental crystal water when she worships the Lord with tulasi leaves in her garden. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Krishna, I'm sitting here on the Vasyasan. Please never allow me to get pride, big ego, just because I'm sitting here. Please allow me to serve you with humility. So we are continuing to read Brahma's description of the Vaikuntha planets, which are known to be resting in the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, the description of which is further cited in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But this section, which we've seen from which the demigods have gone to Lord Brahma because of a great darkness that's descended upon the universe as a result of the birth, of the incoming birth of two great demons. And then we see a section of verses describing the beauty, the glories, the residence, and the main predominator of the Vaikuntha planet. It's plural. And it comes to a close, at least this initial description comes to a close here, and then the next verse describes quite a nice section which describes why it's regrettable that people do not speak about this sort of topics. So we have this initial lens, this view, this kind of grace, this benediction from Krishna himself that allows us to see and hear and speak about Vaikuntha Dham. And even more astonishing, and it should be astonishing, is we hear of intimate affairs between the Lord and the Lakshmis, the goddesses of fortune in the Vaikuntha planets. These are topics that you would think are left to later cantos of the Bhagavatam, as one describes the Bhagavatam as being an elevation of the consciousness of the soul, such that one starts at the feet of the Supreme Lord when reading the first canto and proceeds upwards through the different cantos, through the body of the Lord, up until the smiling face, which is the 10th canto, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. But here we already have a little purview into these sort of loving, intimate affairs. This idea of a personal Godhead, personal Supreme, that doesn't just have this sense of awe and reverence, but there's something deeper. That's something that's already shown here in the third canto. But in describing this beauty, in describing the beauty of the Vaikuntha Dham, we can just appreciate how out of our depth we actually are in appreciating the beauty. I mean, we hear Vapishu Vidruma, in the ponds that are made of coral. I mean, right now there's coral bleaching going on. Who's here seen beautiful coral? We've seen in photos. You've seen gone diving. You see, I mean, I've gone diving, but they're not. They always say there's bleaching, there's a pore. These are coral supremely maintained by the Supreme Lord. The banks that are crystal clear, Amala. Srimad Bhagavatam is also described as Amala. Everything that's surrounded by the Lord, everything that decorates the Lord is Amala. Supreme, clear. There's no fault. And if we think, what are the relative things that we can at least think about or at least contemplate when we read these verses, there's nothing in our conception that can even come close. I mean, if we look at the parks in Sydney, they give us, some little square space in amongst the concrete jungle to enjoy some fresh air, because we need fresh air in amongst all of the economic activity that we undertake for people's gratification. So we can go, right now they're undertaking. I was speaking to a planner, a city planner who's done architecture, and she was saying that, Sydney, they've realized that actually if we plant trees in amongst the concrete, and we make sure we can actually get to a level balance where the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and the emissions, we can get to a point where actually it even affects positivity of the human beings. So they're even going into this depth of trying to understand the nature and how, rather than how we should fit into this natural environment, how the natural environment should fit in with us. We go into these parks and we see it's always under construction. The trees are getting chopped. Forget the city. Let's even go into places you've heard of or been to. New Govardhan, beautiful place up in northern New South Wales. Beautiful, absolutely amazing. Beautiful trees. They have their own Parijata tree there. Or was it Kadamba tree? They have their own Kadamba tree there. It's normally grown in Vrindavan. It's growing there. Beautiful. And it's got this beautiful fog that drips in the morning, and it looks like islands. When the fog drips in and you can see the mountains, you can see islands that are forming across. But even then, that's nothing compared to Vaikuntha. And that's something we should really try to understand. Because all of these elements that we see here in this material world, yes, they are, of course, without the expansion that's been performed on behalf of hedonic motives. They are there because there was a desire to put them there. There was a desire to have them here, separate from Krishna. But the beauty of Vaikuntha planets, the beauty that's described when the Vaikuntanites, when the Vaikuntha Vasis, when they're observing this beautiful space, they are thinking, oh, they're not thinking, oh, how beautiful this is. They're thinking of the Lord. When they see this beauty, they think of the Lord. They think of how beautiful this is decorating the planet of the Lord. How beautiful this palace made of Vaidurya gems, this floor made of Chintamani stone, how beautiful it decorates the Lord and all of his associates, and how when the Lord and the Lakshmis, they walk on it, how beautifully it shines. And how beautiful the reflection of the Lord is on that. The water, how beautiful when the Lord's reflection is on that water. It is not the conception of what we think is beautiful, natural, amazing. For us, why we think it's natural and amazing is because we've surrounded ourselves in this concrete jungle. This concrete jungle has become this kind of prison house, and anything that doesn't resemble this prison house, we consider freedom. And therefore we consider that beautiful. But of course, there's little droplets, and New Govardhan is, of course, I don't mean to say, New Govardhan is, of course, Goloka, Vrindavan, or Vaikuntha on this planet, so forgive me if I made that, but there's no conception here on this planet. There's similar descriptions of the Lord's planets in the Brahma Samhita. In 556, Brahma describes Swetajip, and he also uses the word Goloka, and in such instance, we shouldn't consider it the Swetajip in this that's housed in the material Brahmanda, but the Swetajip that's beyond material world. Because there is a planet in this universe where the Lord resides on his snake, and he resides on the milk ocean. It's also called Swetajip, but this is not the description, this is beyond. And Brahma uses the word Toyam Amritam, the water that he's described as being nectarian. Kalpataruva Druma, all the trees, they're desire trees. Bhumi Chintamani Ganamai, the land, not just inside the environment, inside interior environments, but the land itself is made of Chintamani, touchstone jewels being jewels in which you touch something and your desires, whatever you desire, or certain beautiful ornaments can come as a result of touching that. Yeah, it's magic. In the supreme spiritual world where every word is a song and every walk is a dance, that's a description of Lord Brahma he gives in Brahma Samhita. Even the web, they can't give the results. It's trying. Confirmed. This description that's being given is actually a description that the Kumaras, as we'll see, the Kumaras, they went to the spiritual world, and there they smelt the tulasi that draped the body of the Supreme Lord, and they entered into that planet. They went out of this Brahmanda and into the spiritual world, and they went there and they saw this. And so they described this situation. They described this situation. Goddesses of fortune worshipped the Lord in their own gardens, offering tulasi leaves. And while they worship the Lord, they can see the water on the reflection, their beautiful faces, raised nose, and it appears they've become more beautiful because of the Lord's kissing their faces. This is an observation that's been provided by the Kumaras. Brahma's telling the demigods. This is astonishing. This is really, really astonishing. We should feel that way. But the demigods, there's nothing raised, there's no question, there's no Brahma. What is this? What is this? Kissing? Supreme world? And even when we look at how they are serving the Supreme Lord, the Lakshmis, they each have their own garden. Nijavane. It's not a public garden. It's their own garden. They have their own garden where they worship the Supreme Lord. They have intimate pastimes with the Supreme Lord. And in that respect, we should be very careful with how we actually approach such descriptions of the Supreme World. Of course, we can sit here, we can be astonished, we can be, wow, this is of course something very much higher. This is something deep, I want to go deeper into this. But without going further into this, Lord Brahma, in the next verse, he goes completely into, it is very regrettable and that unfortunate people do not discuss such descriptions of the Vaikuntha planets. He doesn't go deeper. He keeps it at this is the little nectar droplet. This is it. This is what you get. I'm going to tell you why it's bad that no one discusses. So should we go deeper? Should we ask these questions? I called my brother, Srikanta Sena. I called him and I said, hey, so, you know, we had this talking about in the other class with Vrajana Krishna, that in Vaikuntha Dham there's only Dasya Ras, which is servitorship with the Lord, which is usually in awe and reverence. And there's Shanta Ras, which is passive. There's an element of passiveness about it. It's not an active relationship, like we would have an active relationship between persons such as us. And he said, of course, Lakshmi has a intimate relationship with the Supreme Lord, where it is Madhurya, or it is a loving conjugal relationship. But then there's Lakshmis here, and it's describing that they're maidservants and that they clearly have a conjugal relationship with the Lord, and they're kissing. And does that mean that there's souls up there that become Lakshmis? And I went into all these kind of mental pretzels to try to understand what's going on. And we can do that because we want to go deeper. We want to try to find nectar. But there's a danger in nectar shopping. There's a danger in nectar shopping. Because when we just try to first come to appreciate the Supreme Lord, we want to learn more about Him. But when you first learn about someone, learning about their intimate affairs first before who they are is very dangerous. It's like sticking your nose in someone's business. It's like reading someone's personal messages with their lover. I remember when I was first starting Krishna consciousness, must have been 8 years ago or something, and I was reading Jaiva Dharma, which is Bhaktivinoda's great magnum opus on Krishna conscious philosophy. And there's deep chapters towards the end of it speaking about his relationship with Krishna, the intimate pastimes. And I was going to turn, I was just going to do it. And then there was something in me. There was something from somewhere that said, hey, this is your one relationship. This is your one relationship. Krishna, the most important relationship. Why will you want to ruin it? Why will you want to step ahead? Why will you want to go into something and make some kind of error, mistake, conception that's driven by material life, and then alter that ability to go deeper in that relationship, which is based off a prescribed method? Why do you want to go rush ahead? Why do you want to jump like a monkey, as Prabhupada would say? So this trying to understand intimate relationships that the Lord has with His associates, it should begin with listening through the prescribed methods, through authorities, depending on one's position, adhikar, their qualification. But one shouldn't go nectar shopping and think that that's the only thing that they should now focus on, which is intimate pastimes. That's the most important. It seems like that's the thing. It hasn't been expanded upon here in this Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to go looking deeper. There's a reason why Lord Brahma didn't go deeper. There's a reason why Shukadev Goswami didn't go deeper. And that same control, that same precaution is also emulated in the 10th canto. No, Shukadev Goswami doesn't give the names of any gopis, obviously for reasons, due to his own bhava, his own experiences and his own love of Krishna and love of the pastimes. But also, understanding that this book would be read by us in Kali Yuga. I was reading I was hearing a lecture by His Grace Amarendra Prabhu, who was here in Sydney in 2019. He was saying, Kali Yuga, we should really think about, he's speaking about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, and he's saying, in Kali Yuga we get Bhagavatam. And there's some control in the Bhagavatam. If you think about it in Satya Yuga, which is the first millennium, how it's like is the living entities, we chuck all of the things in the air, and we say, my Lord, whatever falls on the ground, you keep, we'll give to you. Whatever stays in the air, we'll take. That's how we do it. Basically, everything falls on the ground, everything's for the Lord. Satya Yuga. In Treta Yuga, what we have is we have this big circle in the ground, and we chuck everything in the air, and we say, Lord, whatever lands in the circle is yours. Whatever lands outside the circle, I'll keep. So some things land outside. Most things, because it's a big circle, it stays in. Dwapara Yuga, that circle becomes a point. We chuck it, we say, Lord, whatever lands in the point, that's yours. Whatever's outside the point, that's ours. And in Kali Yuga, we chuck everything up in the air, we say, Lord, whatever stays up is yours, and whatever's falling on the ground, that's mine. We are the prime audience, that Kali Yuga mentality, we are the prime audience for Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore there's a particular control that's provided for these intimate pastimes. And so one should not be on the hunt for such intimate dealings between Krishna and his associates. These things are realized from one's own deep, and we're not talking just deep how we think someone like a sports person, trains over many years, and this is something that doesn't happen by one's own effort. This is imparted from Krishna. This is imparted from serving the Guru. We sing in Guru Puja, Prema Bhakti Yaha Hote Avijja Vinasha Jate. The Guru teaches us about Prema Bhakti. In these pastimes, it's all Prema Bhakti. My Guru Maharaj was once reluctantly, he gave a class about Srimati Radharani to a Sangha group. It was a very elementary class, of course, and he spoke about Krishna 99% of the time. And at the end, I asked a question. I said, Gurudev, I just feel like I can't understand Srimati Radharani, and I basically don't approach her as much. Because I don't understand. And he says, I'm very happy that you feel that way. I'm very pleased you maintain. So in that way, the Guru can understand where one's position is, and one can understand more based off what the Guru reveals and what Krishna reveals in one's journey in Krishna consciousness. We have stories of those who have gone searching for such intimacies in Vrindavan Dham. For example, Prabhupada's Sanskrit editors, we can say their name because it's in public record, Nitai, Jaya Sachinandan, they went to Vrindavan wanting to learn more about Sanskrit to actually assist Prabhupada. And they went and they met the Babajis of Vrindavan. And there the Babajis of Vrindavan said to them, this Prabhupada, he is not teaching you the real Vrindavan, the real stories of Krishna. He's just giving you the basics, not even nothing, just tip of the iceberg. I'll show you more. And so they obviously felt, all right, this Babaji is here living in Vrindavan. They look very sincere. I'll do what he says. Prabhupada's obviously just gone to the West and he's just teaching very simple things. I want deeper. And so one of them actually went back to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, I want your permission to take Diksha, initiation, from someone else. That nectar shopping led to this. Because Prabhupada had control. Prabhupada had the great purview of the adhikar, or the position of all of the devotees, and what would be best to motivate them and engage them in Krishna service, to put them in a position in the future to understand these intimate dealings. But not right now. Very young. They're like little kindergarten students. Why teach calculus in kindergarten? Prabhupada was very, very angry, as we know. As he said, I give you my blessings to go to hell. Because in that situation, wanting to go deeper and feeling like, I feel very restricted, I can't learn about these things, that's a immature mentality, actually. But the positive situation is, hey, we get this verse. We get this verse, and it's beautiful, it's amazing. But now we go to the next verse. Now we go to the next verse and we read about the next verse. If we want to learn, I've always found that sort of balance very, very curious. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvaha takva deham punar janma naiti mem eti sorjana. One who knows the details of my activities, appearance, birth, upon leaving this body does not come back down, but attains my abode, or Arjuna. But to know Krishna, to really know Krishna, how difficult. A lot of the times I think there's a view that I had. I thought this view. I said, you know what? I'll just put myself in a position to remember Krishna when I pass, and hopefully I'll attain his abode at the end. What a thinking! What a great thinking! You know, actually, how can you think of Krishna unless one actually spends one's entire time, one's entire life engaging in that remembrance, that service of Krishna? Because Krishna says that at the beginning stages of the Gita, that as Krishna goes more deeply into bhakti yoga, because the first 6 chapters is essentially talking about the difference between the body and the soul and the different practices, processes that exist, that allow one to see that difference and allow one to practice in a way in which one can connect with the Supreme Lord. But then, in the middle, beautiful chapters, there's a description of the Lord and wanting to develop a loving relationship with the Lord, where one tries to understand and serve the Supreme Lord. And Krishna, in his great loving way, he says, Bhaktyatva ananya shakya aham evam vadorjuna Nyatam drasham tatatvena parveshtum cha parantapa. Oh, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. That's it. Undivided devotional service. What's undivided? Well, like we were just describing, the throwing, that's one type of division. Another division is an interruption in a process. Actually, if you think about it, material life, or this situation that we've all encountered, being born in this material world, and at some point or another we've, at least me, wanting to gratify our senses, that's a division or a break in bhakti. That's a break in service to Krishna. And similarly, if you look on the other side, not in a neti or duality way of looking, but if you look at the other side and you see Krishna consciousness is a cessation of material life. It's a full engagement with Krishna. And it's only by that when one performs that undivided. I used to, and I still have situations like this. You'll complete a nice Sunday feast in the temple. You'll start in the middle of the day. You'll keep going. You might do some service. You'll do all these different things. Then you come. There'll be class. There'll be a great big kirtan at Gaura Arati. There'll be a great kirtan performed by beautiful kirtaniyas here in Sydney. And then you'll go home and you go, that's enough, Krishna. I'll do something else. I don't know, maybe news, maybe this, that. Undivided. It's a difficult proposition and it's hard to implement. But if one actually considers that if one actually performs undivided devotional service, that the Lord naturally reveals Himself to one. That actually undivided devotional service, although we might feel, just doing this all the time, it feels so hard. My mind doesn't want to do it. But I know that there's some real nectar here. There's some new nectar here that I don't need to shop for, that's going to be revealed naturally over time. But my mind just doesn't want to. But if we do it anyway, if we do it without thinking, without thinking of our mind, we say, oh dear mind, oh dear mind. For so many lifetimes I've been listening to you. I've been doing as you say. I've been engaging in many different things, and I found myself in this situation all of a sudden. And now you are still wanting control. Now you are still wanting me to do something which is against my self-interest. Because this Krishna consciousness is not just an imposition, it's in your self-interest. It's actually in your self-interest. It's the happiest situation you can be. It's your constitutional position. Constitutional meaning? Yes, it's your nature. It's the position that everyone is originally in, and a position which we have rejected, thinking that there's something superior. And we've been caught red-handed in that process. So when hearing about Vaikuntha Dham, hearing about the beautiful pastimes of the Lord there in Vaikuntha Dham, hearing about the goddesses of fortune and how they engage in beautiful service of Krishna, of Vishnu, and how they're engaged in a loving relationship, we should really appreciate that we're actually being told this, and we should continue to read further to learn more through authoritative sources, without shopping, without wanting to find intimacies in places that we don't know. We stay very true to ourselves. We stay very true. Like I said, I'm very happy I never read that end of Jaiva Dharma, where it's talking about Siddha Swarup, all these sort of things. I'm very happy. That way we keep our relationship with Krishna intact. We keep it very safe and secure. That's literally our only asset. That's the most beautiful thing we have. We should protect that. We should protect our Bhakti Kripa from all these attacks from sides. And all of these attacks they're not from external sources, they're from internal sources. Things that happen within us, in our mind, that's telling us to do this and do that, do that. If we establish these strong structures and we have undivided devotional service, that is, we engage in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, all these different processes that are provided that allow one every single day from the morning to the night to remember Krishna. And working for Krishna is bhakti. This idea that, I didn't have any rest today, that's a great proposition actually for a bhakti yogi. I didn't have any time for rest. Amazing. Undivided you were today. How many days can you go undivided? Hare Krishna, I'll take some questions. Questions?
cross from wanting to genuinely know Krishna to then wanting to know it all just to be puffed up. You know, how do you find that line? Like, well, how do you know when it's like genuine questions or you're like speculating or shopping after shopping?
Yes, speculating, nectar shopping, they're two different points. But in one sense, if I take my example when I was looking at Devadharma, because I'd heard so many times Prabhupada, if you read first canto and you read the introduction and you read his purports, he's always going about this point. He's saying everyone wants to go to the rasa dance in the 10th canto. Everyone wants to jump to that point and they want to read, they want to get paid to recite that verse because everyone is interested. Because people like that sort of titillation of the senses. Everyone wants to enjoy that thing, and I continually heard that. And so when I was in a situation where that was happening, I went, oh, I can feel that's wrong. You can feel it. Naturally, when one is very honest and hearing from authoritative sources and hearing from sources which actually do care for us, that do care for our spiritual well-being, like Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Varga, then naturally we hear these points and we're in these situations where we either get asked a question by someone and it's a very deep point and we go, I want to say this, but I don't know. It's better to say I don't know, speculation, better to not speculate. Or if it's a point where it's discussing propositions that you can't even comprehend, like intimate dealings. And you don't know, and B, it's just you'll feel this very this retraction from it. Like, I don't know. It's a crude example, but when I don't know if you're in any of the years. And you walked into a classroom after the senior grades had left, and you looked at the blackboard, and you went, what is that? What is that X? That Y? Those curves on the coordinates? I like 1, 2, 3. It's easy. It's similarly, you can feel, you'll know, you'll have this. But if one doesn't know, then one must immediately start listening to authoritative sources. And only solely authoritative sources. Most devotees within this movement, they're under instructions to read Prabhupada's books and read them solely, read them first before approaching any other texts. You'll be safe. Prabhupada's protecting us in his books. His ecstasies are in his books, so we get enough ecstasy there. Many of us, it's read Prabhupada's books 3 times, over. Still then, you read them again and again and again. You will never get to the end of it and you will never stop feeling ecstasy. You will actually feel better even time. Yes, Prabhu. Yes. How I approached it was the latter was, but there's no description given here, so I can't come to a conclusive response. I don't know. I'll be speculating. But the context is the Kumaras saw this. The context is the Kumaras saw this. And so that's why it's being described. So what's taking over?
Say work or studies, say you've chosen that as your thing that so you can engage with other people with more freedom or things like that, but that has actually taken over rather than facilitate
Hmm.
consciousness. So how do you so when you're working, how do you shift the circumstances to Krishna when in front of you is all this other stuff that's not got Krishna's name on it?
A lot of the times, sorry, this coldness has just completely destroyed my system. Arjuna, when he was engaged in warfare, this was after the Gita was spoken. When he was shooting, it wasn't Krishna, 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 Krishna. I'm thinking of Krishna, thinking of Krishna, thinking of Krishna, thinking of Krishna. Do you see the bird? Yes. Do you see the eye of the bird? Yes. What else do you see? Nothing else. Let go of the arrow. In performing work, one should be focused on the work. Actually, one devotee said to me, work as if Krishna is your boss. Then you'll work really, really well, and you'll feel like you're working for Krishna. This idea of, I'm not thinking of Krishna. No, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if one performs their work, without thinking of the results, but offers those results to Krishna, then one is performing Krishna consciousness. So, but you obviously, it sounds like you want more direct Krishna time. So how will you facilitate that? Is the question. What times, what are you currently doing now in the mornings? What's your schedule like? When do you wake up? When do you sleep? What do you really need? When are those times when you can start by writing a journal of literally your daily activities. The great Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a diary of what he was doing every day. He was an elevated Vaishnava. We found out he slept like 2 hours or something. He was a biurnal sleeper, meaning he had 2 sections of sleep. He would write late into the night. And it was all intricately curated to perform service for Krishna and have direct Krishna time, because he was also a magistrate. He was a judge, and he worked a lot. But because he was so purely Krishna conscious, he was able to perform work the best that was ever seen in that district. The best. So good, he would find the crux of the case so quickly that the at the time it was the British Raj, they constructed a rail. He said there was some discussions that he might leave that post because he wanted to do more Namhata and scriptural work. And they basically said, no, if it's so difficult for you to come here, we'll construct the rail line near your residence. We'll just amend it a little bit and construct it. So we can perform work in a way in which, like Prabhupada says, this Krishna consciousness makes a perfect human being. We're not derelicts. We don't become dereliction in our duties. We actually engage in them in a way which is more contributive, connective, actually makes a difference. And we get that energy from our personal Krishna conscious practices, our sadhana. And that source starts in, what are we hearing in the morning? What's actually happening in the morning? How good are we with our time? And then once we perform those activities, how quickly we can connect directly back. Sometimes there's a bit of I've talked to a lot of devotees in the situation where they come back from work and they need a bit of a hang time. There's a space there where it's like, it's just difficult to go back. What am I doing? What's the thing I need to do in that situation? I'm still working on that. So, those things. Anything else, Prabhus, Vaishnavis? Hare Krishna. Kantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premananda.